Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up in this program, as we mark International Women's Day, are boys losing out in the campaign for gender equality? Also, we talk to an education specialist on the difficulties of ensuring nobody's left behind at school, be they boys or girls. And a shock development on the Israeli political scene, the creation of the country's first ever ultra-Orthodox Jewish Women's Party. Now, with the world's attention this week on International Women's Day, there's been much discussion about the progress women have made, or not, in recent years. And nowhere is this more keenly felt than in the area of girls' education. But here in France, some are arguing that in the push for equality in the classroom, boys have been left behind, while others say that's not the case. This report by Lucy Proven and Josh Vardy.
Muscly macho men, miserable henpecked fathers. Such are the images presented in the media often. And according to this psychologist, it means that boys aren't getting the support they need in school.
Why do you think girls do better in school?
They are more concentrated in the classes. They are more involved in the work than us.
In dozens of countries, boys fare worse in maths, science and reading exams. 60% of school dropouts in France are boys.
Boys need to be more stimulated. They need models to imitate and identify with. We need to get rid of the idea that school is something for girls.
A recent OECD report described boys as being trapped in a cycle of low performance, poor motivation and disengagement with school. This is aggravated by the fact they're more likely to take risks, drink more alcohol and smoke twice the amount of cannabis as girls. This expert on adolescent thinking says the answer is to give boys a greater outlet for their aggression.
We have to restore rites of passage, which permits an adolescent to be recognized in his qualities, strength, bravery, for example, sporting achievements.
But others say that the pressure to fit the male stereotype is exactly the problem.
Of course the woman looks after the children, of course the man must be ambitious, of course the woman is gentle, and of course the man likes hunting and fishing. No, we don't have these ideas anymore, they're prejudices. But prejudices box people in, they hold people back. And in the past a lot of men were in some places stuck in this role of the strong man, and they had to hold on to that.
Despite boys' difficulties, it's still true that once school is over, they find it much easier to find work than girls with the same qualifications.
And that report by Lucy Proven and Josh Vardy. Joining me now in the studio is UNESCO Gender Education Specialist Maki Hashikawa. Maki, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Given what you've just seen in that report, are boys indeed being left behind in the classroom?
I would say that it's very difficult to generalize around the world, but I think it is a growing concern happening in the education sector. When we talk about gender equality, we tend to have this focus on girls' issues, but in fact, gender is a matter of both girls and boys, women and men. And we have to see that equality in education has to be seen from both girls and boys' perspective.
What are the specific problems that boys are facing?
We see that boys often tend to fail in many countries where we do have research going on, is that it happens mostly when they reach adolescence in particular, which means around secondary education. We do see that boys do pretty well together with girls in primary education. In most of the country, we do have research, which tend to be in the Western and more developed countries. But when it comes to adolescence, there's other socio-economic factors or culture.
So the key thing in all of this is to ensure that there's true gender equality between both sexes in the classroom, isn't there?
Yes, indeed. Of course, we have to look at the issue that girls face in education, continuous education, and even moving upwards in the education ladder. But we cannot do that at the expense of boys. It's also unfortunate that when boys do underperform girls, they tend to make the headlines of newspapers where girls don't. So I think there's a lot of this preconceptualized or I would say some assumptions that boys are supposed to be doing better than girls in general, whereas we're talking about boys and girls who are growing up together in the same education environment.
Is this very much a first world problem, however? Because I imagine in the developing world you still have a lot of issues about young girls actually getting the chance to get into a classroom.
Yes, I think it is more highlighted in the developed countries for sure, but it's not limited to the developed countries, not limited to Europe or US or UK and so on. We do see cases happening in East Asia, also in the Latin America, particularly in the Caribbean countries. We see spotted cases in Africa as well as in Arab states. So it is actually a situation that is emerging around the world.
Now, the UN is holding a summit in New York, which is marking 20 years since that landmark gathering in Beijing, where a whole series of policy initiatives were rolled out to empower women.
Yes.
But when we look at the area of girls' education, how far have we travelled since 1995?
Well, we have come far since then, that is for sure. In many countries, girls' enrollment, access to education have doubled or tripled in many countries. Many countries have actually achieved so-called gender parity in enrollment, which means that you have same proportion boys and girls entering education. However, there is much to be done. The ultimate goal is gender equality, not just having girls and boys in school. We want to see that the outcomes of education is also leading to equality between the sexes in beyond education as well, because the impact of education has to be felt throughout life. It cannot be just within the school context.
And when you say we've still got some way to go, I mean, what else needs to be done?
I think we have to see that we do not promote girls and women's education at the expense of boys and men's, of course. The opportunity and the right to education is for everyone. It's for boys, girls, men, and women. And we have to see that how education systems are receiving the different needs and aspirations of boys and girls. Although we talk about equality, it doesn't mean that we're going to treat boys and girls exactly the same. There are differences between biological differences, aspirational differences, motivations, and all these things. And the education system has traditionally tended to try to deal with the group of very diverse population in the classroom and trying to deal with them in exactly the same way. And I think we are moving towards an age where we have to see more personalized education even within the classroom to see that teachers and the education system overall can meet the individual needs and aspirations through education.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, the Israeli political scene is volatile at the best of times, but as the country prepares for elections on March 17, a new party has taken everybody by surprise. Israel's first ever ultra-Orthodox Jewish women's party, Bezurotan, or in English, Religious Women Making Change, is certainly doing just that, as Gallagher Fenwick reports.
My name is Gila Yashar. I'm a member of the ultra-Orthodox Women's Party and we want to be elected to Parliament.
A dozen ultra-Orthodox women candidates are one of the biggest surprises of the campaign leading up to Israel's legislative elections. It's the very first time in the country's history that women like Gila Yashar go into politics.
It's about the time. We are not living 100 years ago in Persia. We are now in Medinat Israel, and we should change the Knesset, not only men, excuse me.
Wherever she goes, Gila is always trying to win votes, including when she's shopping in the heart of one of Jerusalem's ultra-religious neighborhoods.
I believe that religious women should have the same rights as secular women.
By following Gila around, we get a rare glimpse into what she describes as a closed and male-dominated community.
You should wear pants, not a skirt, if you want to survive in this world.
Gila says that religious male politicians rarely know about the issues that matter to the women around them. She wants to give them a voice.
Religious women in parliament? What are you talking about? That's not fit for them.
She says the same thing. You listen that the wife job is to be at home, raising the kids and taking care of the house and her husband, and she shouldn't be in the Knesset, in the government.
After her divorce, Gila won custody of 3 of her 7 children, including a special needs boy. He attends a religious school where she regularly checks up on him and never misses an opportunity to spread her message.
Respect them, give them their rights, give them wherever they need, because woman is equal to the man.
Back at home, the candidate tells us about the incident that prompted her to go into politics. Last year, a rabbi ordered her arrest. She ended up being handcuffed to a hospital bed after she fainted. She states her only crime was failing to show up at a divorce hearing at a rabbinical court.
I don't know how people will accept it, especially in the Orthodox community, but I'm trying to do my best that it will be helpful to the other women, and the women will not be afraid.
No. I don't understand. So there is
Women
four.
ultra-Orthodox candidates might not make it into Israel's parliament this time, but they have already set the wheels of change in motion within their community.
And that's it for now. And if you'd like to comment on what you've just seen, you can head to our Facebook page, that's France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far, and please keep those comments coming in. And in next week's show, we're going to be coming to you from the UN Women's Summit in New York. Until then, bye for now.